Hey guys, it's Ben with Passive Income Unlocked. Today I want to talk about site seasonality. For those of you that checked out our site, mybackyardlife.com, you may have noticed that there's a lot of seasonality to it. A lot of people say to stay away from seasonal sites because there's a lot of dips in the revenue. But let's check it out. Alright, here we are at mybackyardlife.com. Let's head over to Outdoor Adventures and check out a couple of seasonality post samples. The first one that pops up is Travel Trailer RV Camper Fridge does not cool on hot days. Obviously this is not going to be an issue in the winter and probably not the spring or the fall depending on where you live. The next post is can you keep a deer freezer outside? When to plant turnips for deer. These are all seasonal things that only happen certain times of the year, which is when you're going to get your spikes and your lulls throughout the year. Whenever you build a new site, you want that site to produce consistent revenue throughout the year. With a seasonal site, you won't get that. Instead, you'll get peaks and valleys throughout the year. So some of the months will have really high traffic and revenue, while the others will be really low. Seasonal sites still aren't all that bad though, because most people avoid them. There tends to be less competition. With less competition, obviously you're going to have an easier time finding good keywords to target to grow your site more quickly. My goal with this video though isn't to tell you you should or shouldn't start a seasonal site. Instead, I want to tackle a common approach that many people like to take with seasonal sites that we don't think makes a whole lot of sense. If you have a seasonal site, at some point you're going to want to ask yourself whether or not you should start adding off-season content to your site to even out those peaks and valleys throughout the year. Most people probably don't even give it a second thought because at first glance it seems to make perfect sense. Is this really the best approach though? We actually don't think this is a great idea, and instead we do the opposite and double down on our seasonal content. Let's say you have a fishing site which gets good traffic about 3/4 of the year. As your site grows, you might get the urge to add some ice fishing articles to bring the traffic to those 2 to 4 months where your traffic and ad revenue are low. However, does it make more sense to write or outsource an article that generates revenue for you 9 months out of the year or one that generates revenue for 3 months out of the year? No matter how you look at it, the on-season content will always win when you look at the total revenue that it generates over the course of a year. That's why we double down on our on-season content on our sites, instead of investing in off-season content. No, this won't even out your peaks and valleys, but we'd rather have a higher overall return throughout the year than have a consistent month-to-month return. My point is that if you have to choose one or the other, stick with the content that will provide the biggest return throughout the year. You can always add off-season content to your site over time as you start running out of keywords, or when you get to the point that you simply aren't concerned which articles provide the biggest bang for their buck. Now, just because this is our approach to building seasonal sites, it doesn't mean it's the only approach. For some of you, having consistent month-to-month return will be more important than overall revenue, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. With all the recommendations that we make on this channel, take them just as that, recommendations. Always do what makes sense in your own situation. The last point that I want to bring up about balancing seasonality is that you can approach it in yet another way. Instead of trying to balance the seasonality of one site, why not balance it across your portfolio of sites? Now, we don't intentionally do this with our 5 sites, but they more or less break down as 2 that will do better in the warmer weather and 2 that will do better during the winter, and 2 that are relatively stable throughout the year. While we definitely still experience peaks and valleys throughout the year, they aren't as drastic as they would be if we only had one site or if we had a portfolio of sites that all peaked at the same time. Alright guys, that's it for this one. That's how we strategically handle seasonal content for our sites. Don't forget to hit the like button and head over to Passive Income Unlocked for more tips. Until next time.